We have an LS2 GTO today. Black on black. Black on black on black. Sharp looking car. This one's in good shape, it looks like. We're gonna get it inside tonight, and assuming the motor is cold enough that I can touch it, we're gonna change some plugs on it and get it ready for the dyno tomorrow. Everybody making me the short guy this week. Through our pre-tuned check on this car now. Kelsey's already gotten it started. What have you found so far, Kels?
It has a good idle, loves our torque. It has good tire pressures, but it's a little uneven from side to side, and the tires are pretty worn. Yeah,
we've got some balding there, and they look a little bit dry rotted too. This is a tire from 2014, so 6-year-old rubber. That's probably going to be a safety concern. Looks like this part of the body kit is not in all the way either. There you go. That should fit better. What's next? We ready for oil?
I am.
We are good. It's decent. It's not black, but it's brown.
Okay. Is there coolant?
Let me see if it's pressurized. Yeah, we can open that. Yes, we have coolant.
Can we check the fuel pressure on this one?
No, there's no sensor on this one.
Fuel system notes. Nothing.
And this one, this is technically going to be a vacuum leak here. So we may need to pull off the intake and see if we can get that to seal a little better than that. This is a Vararam intake. Their gimmick is, you know, when you get to a higher speed, you got air that's pushing into it and it makes more power. Well, you can't measure that on the dyno, and the only experience I've had with it is it doesn't fit very well. So that's kind of the concern there. I'm going to have to pull this off and see if I can get that sealed up, because what's going to happen is, since there's a little gap there that you can see, it's going to be drawing in air through that instead of through the MAF. So if you were to seal this up later and get that to fit properly, then you would have extra air that wasn't metered before and it's going to be richer. Or if this comes off, you're going to have air that's not metered in excess and that's going to be leaner. So that needs a little attention. I'll pull that off and see if that's something I can easily fix. It also looks like this boot might not be all the way onto the mass airflow sensor. The MAF is kind of at an angle like this, and the boot is kind of at an angle like that. So we'll see if we can correct that. Right. What else is next?
Battery and charging system.
Battery and charging system.
So as far as vacuum leaks, I'm going to say yes, there are some.
Yep.
I'm not going to say please fix or I fixed.
Yeah.
We don't know yet.
12.43.
Exhaust leaks.
No.
Intake tube diameter.
Intake tube. Say...
We don't have to answer that one.
Yeah, let's leave that one blank, because that taper right immediately after the MAF is going to be non-standard to anything else we're going to tune, so we don't need that data.
Installed properly.
Yeah. stock math.
PCV.
PCV is okay.
I'm going to take a picture of the engine bay, and then
Okay.
we need to get started on cylinder checks.
And
look under it while I'm doing
yeah, before we do that, I'll go under, take a look at the drivetrain. And I might need my phone or a phone so that I can see a little better. I don't know that the camera's gonna see this, it's getting dark.
Alright, I'll get you my stuff from doing what I was.
Sorry. Cool, thank you. All right, we have a nice looking long tube set.
I really liked them.
Yeah,
Nice from up here.
I don't see any places that concern me of being a significant exhaust leak. We don't have cats. Transmission is all in one piece, it looks like. We have a little bit of seepage from the output shaft. Nothing too worried about. Wells look okay. Yep, there's something. So the center support for the drive shaft is trashed. This car drove here about an hour, so that might tell you a little bit about how significant that is, but that should definitely be addressed before this is run, especially at high speeds. We're gonna let the customer know about that before we get it on the dyno. Pinion seal is good. We may have a slight leak. Recent oil change. Belt drive looks okay. There is a slight seep at the steering rack. And we have pulled up treble codes. We have a MAF range performance code, which that's not typical. We're gonna have to check into that. O2 circuit slow response bank 1 sensor 1, that's expected. It has long tubes. It has system 2 rich bank 1 and 2. That's not typical for this. We're gonna have to look into that too. Catalyst efficiency below threshold, bank 1 and 2, that's expected. EVAP, system high purge flow, that's not necessarily expected. That might be a gas cap vacuum line unconnected off the solenoid, something like that. And we have insufficient switching for bank 1 sensor 1 and transition time for bank 1 sensor 1. I don't see those codes for sensor 2, so we might want to see if there may be a sensor wear issue between bank 1 and bank 2. We'll see as we start it up and start watching fuel trims. So I'm going to get in the car and I'm going to fire up the motor, and then we're going to do our cylinder check. While we check cylinders, we've got fuel trims on and recording, so we'll be able to see what the O2 sensors are doing when we come back to the laptop. If you get right on the bend, you get the best measurement. So we're 165, 166, 200. 200, 204, 211, 236, 240, 202. That's all good. So now we'll get back in the car and we'll take a look at the MAF, and we'll take a look at fuel trims and see what they're doing.
What are the last 3 numbers?
It is... I'm gonna have to turn it off, I think. Oop. 72,154.
Okay. There enough
There is plenty of fuel. Thank you. So bank 1 is taking out 8%. Bank 2 is a little closer to 7%.
Taking it out?
Yeah. And we do have a reading on the MAF, so don't have anything nefarious there that we need to worry about yet. Pulling 34 kPa at idle, that's a little bit low for what I would expect. Usually we see closer to 25. Jiggle the wires. Make sure we don't have any puffing. We're good. I'm gonna go around the block, then let's back it up so we can put it on the dyno tomorrow morning. So when I take these little test drives around town, I'm logging fuel trim data as I drive. That way I can use that fuel trim data to tell me where the MAF curve needs to start to lay out. So even without having a wideband on here, I can at least get the first half of the mass airflow curve started. And if you know what the bottom of the curve looks like, you can make a good assumption as to what the top of the MAF curve looks like. So when you go to run on the dyno for the first time, you're not going to be excessively rich or excessively lean because you have a little bit of a clue there. So gives us two opportunities. You get to drive the car first, you get to see if it's having problems, you get to see if it's driving okay, and you get a little bit of a starting point on your calibration for the next day. That way when you get on the dyno, you're not spending time trying to get good, accurate data for the low flow areas of the MAF where you don't really have enough load to get good data to start with. Just something that I've learned that helps me save some time and get a little bit better calibrations. Car's driving great. Not feeling any noticeable problems whatsoever. No excessive vibrations or any issues like that from the center support shaft or center support bushing on the drive shaft. We just completed our first pull in the GTO. We made 344 wheel horsepower and 355 foot-pounds. This car was commanding like 13.5 to 1, so it definitely needs more fuel, and that would be why you see so much undulation in the dyno pull. We're going to get more fuel added, we're going to let the car cool down a bit, and then we're going to make another pull and see some gains. We ended up having to add somewhere between 10 and 15% fuel up top, and we ended up finding 372.9 wheel horsepower and 389 foot-pounds of torque. So pretty substantial gains there just by adding fuel. We're actually running less timing than the last calibration. It came in on around 26 degrees, and right now we're only at about 22.5 degrees. So I'm going to minimize this, go back to the data log. Fueling, we're real close to target now. We're going to still have to get that a little bit closer. I want to be within a couple percent if I can, and we're going to add timing on top of that. So still probably just a little bit of gains to go. It has 243 heads, so I wouldn't expect it to pick up a whole lot more with added timing, but we're going to see what it'll take, and we're going to get it calibrated further now. done. I've recolored everything so that the most recent run is in red. I'm going to continue to do that so that it helps see what the gains or not gains are. This is our calibration from last time, plus 1 degree of timing under full throttle, and we are targeting 12.5 to 1 instead of 12 flat to 1. So fueling is still real close, right where we want it to be. We noticed that when we added timing, we didn't really pick up power except for maybe up here at the very top. That's kind of to be expected with these heads. Usually with 243 heads, you don't really need a whole lot of timing to get good burn efficiency out of it, so I'm not too disappointed seeing this. What we're going to do is we're going to take the additional timing from lower RPMs below about 5,500 out, and we're going to continue to ramp it in a little bit harder after peak torque, where we're showing that we may see some gains. We'll see if we pick any up from there, but as far as the calibration sits, it's real close at this point, and I'm not sure how much more power we're going to find. Fueling, real close to where it needs to be. I need to take out just a little bit in this MAF frequency range, and we show a little bit of pre-ignition, 0.5 degrees of knock retard at right about 3 grand when I was getting into it. So that's not necessarily saying that it has too much timing. That may be an indication that the car might need a cash can or something like that. What we want to do at this point is observe the car over a couple more pulls and see if it has the same symptoms. If it does, we'll try to take timing out there and see if that helps take that knock retard out. Since the car came in at 26 degrees of timing and we didn't see any knock retard on the first pull, I would assume that this is probably either noise or just drawing in some oil from the valve guides or something. We're going to write another calibration of the vehicle, and we will update with another video after that. Pull number 4, we took out timing below 5 grand because we didn't see a power increase. We also didn't see a power loss by taking out timing, which means it's where it wants to be. We did ramp in another degree of timing by redline, and that netted us just a little bit more power up top. The power curve extends out a little further, and that should make it just a little bit faster. I don't know that it's going to be appreciable. We're not going to see any more power from this, but it's a good gain, especially compared to where we were stock. I'm going to turn off the intermediate 2 pulls so we can see where we were and where we ended up. So right here, 344 horsepower and 376 after we were done. Nice gains. Just to give you an idea of the timing map, how this car came in, this is what we started with, and this is where we ended up. If I switch over to a numerical view instead, we can look at the differences, and we're actually running less timing for the majority of the timing map. The car is in this range when we're full throttle, so we're 3 degrees less around peak torque and 1.5 degrees less above that. So pulling out timing, adding in fuel, actually makes the car faster. I just got back from a lap around town with the GTO, making sure that all the fuel trims lined out and we're within 2%. Everything looks great, and this one is good to go. On this car we saw around a 30 horsepower gain, and that's not typical for these. Usually you won't see that much of a gain, but the calibration on this one, from the changes in the intake tube as well as the headers, fueling was way off. So for this specific car, we saw some pretty impressive gains, and this should be a good change and a good kick in the pants. This one's ready to go and hit the streets.